Every, how are we tonight? Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay. So this is the first session back for quite a while. So this is a bit of a test run tonight. We're doing a few different mix downs for people. So if you want your track mixing down, please hit me up. You can DM me on social media. But tonight's just a little bit of a test. If you're around, say hello. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm just going to do a few tests, make sure this is working. Okay, so we're going to start doing these all the time from tomorrow. So if you want your mixes mixing down live on here, let us know. We've got a great community of people that come and join us, and I will have a quick Zoom with you beforehand. We'll go through it and we'll hopefully get it mixed down, or do a mixing and production review live on air, and hopefully we'll get it finished. So yeah, just email me. The email's in the link below. And yes, so I had a couple of questions, and one of them questions was regarding side chaining. So we'll do that very, very quickly. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a bass note on the kick. Okay. So I've got a single note on the bass. Great. Now I want you to imagine that that kick, that bass note, is on the kick. So what's the first thing you would do? So a lot of people use sidechain to the kick. So what they'll do is they'll get a compressor, and they will sidechain it to the kick. Okay, right. So what I want you to do here is I want you to listen to the attack of it. So we'd have a fast attack and a pretty fast release. So let's have a listen to it. Now, what it's doing, it's compressing the bass, okay, but you can still hear the transient come through. So why is that? Well, we'll go into that in a second. Let's have a listen to something else that people use for this. Let's go to Track Spacer. Let's put that on. This is what a lot of people swear by. Sidechain the kick. Putting a fast attack. We've still got the transient there, really, haven't we? So why is that? Okay, let's have a look at something else. Soothe seems to be a big one that everyone seems to be going on about all the time. Let's put a soothe on there. Take it all the way down to the bottom. Just do the bottom end. Well, let's do the whole thing actually. Okay. And then we're going to side chain it from the kick. Again. attack. Release. Okay, that seems to be a bit better, but you've still got the transient there of the base. So what that means is that even though you're sidechaining the base to the kick, the transient of the base is still there. Most people don't understand this. So let me bring up LFO tool. Now, you can use shape of box, you can use duck, you can use whatever. I just like this because it's easier to see. Okay, right. So if I sidechain with this, let's have a listen. Now we've lost the transient, and that's what we want, really. So what's happening is this. As you can see here, it's turning the volume down on the exact transient, and then you've got to decide how you want it, and then it's bringing the volume back up. So let's just say that was the kick. We could turn it right down for the kick and then bring it up accordingly. Okay, so we're turning down the volume of the beginning of the bass, the transient of the bass. But what we're doing is, and what's the difference between this and a compressor is that we're turning the volume down before the kick comes in. Okay, so because this isn't side chained, this is just doing it on the kick. What this is doing is it's turning the volume down just before the kick comes in. So you're guaranteed that the transient of the bass and the transient of the kick, you know, whether it just be the full sound or you know, just do under 100 odd hertz, it's still not going to be side chaining the bass to the kick properly exactly how you want it, because the transient's still going to be in there. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that you still get the transient, so you're getting an energy spike on the transient of the kick, which is exactly what we don't want. We want to take away the bass from the kick when they're both playing together. So that's why you need something like an LFO tool or a duck or shaper box to do exactly this. Okay, so people will ask, or people ask me, so why is it people use a compressor? Okay, so the compressor is just what we had, but it's still let the transient through. You've just heard that yourself. Okay, so what a lot of people seem to think, and this is not true, right, that the attack is how quick it starts compressing, meaning when the transient hits, it's already compressed a little bit or a lot. That's not true. Just to confirm, what the attack is on a compressor is how quickly it goes from when it hits the threshold to the fully compressed, let's say that's fully compressed, level. So is it hitting that quickly, or is it hitting that over a long distance? So that's a long attack. And this is a short attack. So as you can see, you know, this is what we're taking out, but this is always going to be in with a normal compressor, even with a fast attack. And that's why with fast attacks and fast releases, you can get clicks and pops, and that's because this is still in there with a really fast attack. So a normal compressor isn't ideal for that kind of thing. Okay, and just to let you know, the attack is the time it takes from hitting the threshold to hit full compression. You know, whilst it's under the threshold, it's still compressing. When it comes back up to the threshold, the release is the opposite. The release is how long it takes to go to not compressing at all. So, you know, that might be a fast release that might be a slow release. All depends on the using the attack and the threshold and the release. So this is why using one of these is always best for sidechain compression, because what it does is it turns it down just slightly before the kick comes in, so it's guaranteed to help your kick punch through a little bit more in the mix. Okay, 1 second. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Hello? Can you hear me? Sorry about that. I've just turned it up. Okay, so always use an LFO tool or shaper box or duck or whatever you've got to guarantee that the transient of the kick is coming through without having, you know, the artifacts from a really fast attack. And that's it. So basically this rate is at a quarter, so every kick it does it. Now if you're doing something with a break beat, you might be able to use something like shaper box, because it's a bit more flexible than that. And because it's not being sidechained to anything, it's not got that time between the attack and hitting full compression. So you could do the same here, but what you can do is you can, like, let's say your beats are over 2 bars, get the 2 bars and then just draw it appropriately for how you want it. Let's just say that's that. Bring it back before. There, like you're taking it down, and then let's say that's the next kick. And you can shape it to what's better for you. However you want to sidechain it, you can do it like this, so it just pop it down with the kick. You can do whatever you like. And then what's happening is it's guaranteeing that the bass, the transient of the bass, or the bass isn't at full volume as soon as the transient of the kick hits. Obviously I only do 4/4 music, so this is what I would do, but it's definitely better than using a compressor. Now, some compressors will have look ahead. Like this. Okay, so let's just have a look at this. So we've got, let's sidechain it to the kick. Just make sure that it is. This doesn't seem to be sidechaining to it. But basically, what could happen is you could turn on look ahead. It might just be cause. No, it's not. Okay, so basically, if it does sidechain it, what you can do is you can use a look ahead, and what that does is it moves the audio a bit later, which can be problematic in the mix. And what that will do, that will mean that the compressor will come down, but the audio will start a little bit later, which means you will lose a transient. But I don't recommend doing that. I have tried it, but it doesn't work great. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, tonight's just a bit of a test to make sure we're back up and running. We're going to start tomorrow night. If you want me to mix your tracks down, just let me know. Have you got any questions for me? Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. Okay, so that should be side chaining, but it's not. So it's only reading that. Okay, so side chain compression. That's what you need to be doing. Really, you need to be thinking about it. And the other thing that I do when I'm side chaining is I will always, when I'm working on the bottom end, let's say Soothe was the best one, wasn't it? So let's just say we've got Soothe. And what I'll do is I'll bring in Metric AB. Just listen to the bottom end. Turn it off. And I'll listen to it and I'll try and tune in to the kick and the bass in the low frequencies to see what it's doing. And then I'll tune in and say, is the kick coming through more with it on? Yeah. But one thing to be mindful of when you sidechain, and this is why I don't always use the sidechain. I sometimes, I always do this. I don't use Soothe anymore for sidechain. I always use LFO2 no shaper box. So let's just put that on. Okay, let's just listen again. Okay, so what I would do, I would probably do this first of all. Okay, so the kick's definitely coming through, but I'm losing a bit of bass in the whole track. So what I would do is I sometimes put a little mark like this, and then I carve it using my ears tuned into those lower frequencies. Excuse me. So, and I listen. Turn it on and off. And I'll find which makes the kick come through more, but also doesn't take away all the bass and all the sub and all the bottom end. Because a lot of the time, people bring me the tracks and use LFO, but it's taking the bass out of the track. And you want to let the kick come through, but you don't want to lose all the bass. You just want to make the kick punch in the mix a little bit more. So, you know, and we don't want to lose the kick with the bass. And obviously in this case, we can hear that in that position where it is now, it's side chaining it and it's taking out a bit of the sub frequencies, but it's not taking out it all. So we're not losing the warmth and the bass of the track. Adam, hi Adam, hope you're okay. Hi, would you buy LFO or shaper box or other? I'm a learner, so I don't want to break the bank. Well, it depends on your budget. Well, LFO tool's great, it's easy. But the thing about shaper box, and I do use, what DAW do you use, Adam? The thing about shaper box is I use it all the time, not necessarily in, but you've got all these things. So, for example, I really like on, let's have a quick listen. I like this. Let's just play a different bass line. you've got the side chain, you've got pan, but you've also got stuff like this. So if I want the distortion, I want it to distort a little bit more over one bar. I can do that. I love Shaperbox. It is really good. And again, everything else you can create loads of filters. Let's just have a look at something here quickly. You can create loads of stuff. And yeah, Shaperbox for me is something that I use all the time, Adam. It's in my top plugins for this kind of thing. But if you're good at Ableton, you can kind of modulate anything. But as a beginner, I would say invest in Shaperbox. I would wait till it's on sale. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would probably buy Shaperbox just because it can do everything else. Okay, any questions for me? I think if you're making electronic music, that using side chaining like here is one of the key things that you've got to do. You know, everything's about choosing your kick and your bass right so they work together. But this side chaining is massive for us in electronic music. So I think that you should. I'm doing a big course called Mixing Kick and Bass, and this is going to be a massive part of it. But I think a great tool is Shaperbox. If you want to use LFO tool, great. Duck, and there's lots of other options, I think. But that's what I use. I generally use LFO tool because it's just easy, and I put it on everything. And let's have a quick look at this. Shaperbox has got latency 16 samples, whereas LFO2's got no latency. And I'm quite mindful about plugins creating latency because the other quite a bit when you use certain plugins. Like look at Soothe. Soothes, if you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, that's like 2048 samples. You have a few of them on, and what happens is like the other day I was pressing stop and start, and there was a gap between pressing stop and start. And when you're looking, using your eyes, there's a delay, and that's what this creates. All this. If you go to options, delay compensation, I have got that there, but it doesn't work perfectly. So yeah, that's why I like LFO tool, and I prefer plugins nowadays that don't create it. I'm very mindful with the latency. Like I love acoustical plugins. I think they're brilliant, but you get too much on your project and it creates problems with latency. And it's a pain in the arse where you're pressing your space bar and you've got to wait, half a second for it to start playing. So yes, learn with me. Can you tell us a bit about your start in music and what got you into it? Yes, of course. I was a paramedic. I was told I could never do music. And I used to go to all the raves back in the day and go to Hacienda. And I started DJing, going back to people's parties, DJing. And every week I used to go into the record shop in Manchester called Eastern Bloc. And a guy called Big Danny used to work there, Andy Daniels. And he said, do you want to come to the studio? And I thought, oh no, I won't be able to do it. Anyway, I would start DJing at bigger clubs in Manchester, and I was still a paramedic. And I went in the studio one day. He said, come in the studio, it's for free. So I thought, I'll go in and I'll have a look. And in them days, you didn't have to be a producer to be a big DJ. You could just DJ and, and that was it. And I wasn't thinking it was going to be my career. I was going to be a paramedic. That was all I wanted to do. And I went in the studio for the first day and I got the bug. And I'm not saying I'm old, but I got a brown Mac. I bought it for about 300 quid and I just was addicted to Logic. and I learned and learned and learned. Now, I was lucky because I was being a paramedic, but I was also DJing. And then I then started my own night in Manchester. So I started earning quite a bit of money. So I learnt with producers in Manchester. Shout out to Andy Rosser and Dave Luke. And then I was running God's Kitchen in Birmingham for the house night. And I was meeting all the people. And then I started working with all the top engineers in London. Mark Knight was driving Dave Lee, Joe Negro one night, and then we became friends, and I started using their engineer, then I started using another engineer, then another engineer. I just learned from all them different people. So yeah, that was how I got into it, and it was just practice, and I was lucky enough to start DJing, having big careers. And at the beginning, I was like most people who are out there. I was just going out there and using engineers. So I always had the ideas in my head. So what I do is I go in with vinyl. I like the kick out of this. I like this, like that. I lower that. Because I was DJing, I knew what people wanted on the dance floor. And if there was something that I heard about, I would go in the studio and go, okay, how do you do this on a record? And yeah, and that was it. We were using samplers and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm still doing it. It's been a bumpy ride, but yeah, it was great. You know, when I was topping the charts and traveling the world, I was using engineers a lot of the time. I was doing stuff from my laptop and going in with engineers like most people do. You know, most big DJs now use someone like me. You know, a lot of the big names that people use are like James Herr, Dean Ramirez, shout out Dean, Ingo, who's Tom Starr, who's got Star Villa in Ibiza now. He's massive. He works with David Guetta and everyone else. James Reynolds. There's loads of people. Most big people use someone like me to help them finish their tracks off or mix their tracks. I'm not saying that the people who use them people are getting the other people to produce the records. They're generally not. They're generally coming in with some ideas, with a laptop, and you know, they can sit behind someone like me or James Herr or someone else, and they can be more creative, because I found it to be more creative when I was stood behind, because all I was thinking about was dancing and how it made me feel and the journey. Whereas when I'm sat in front of the computer, I'm thinking about, oh, what's going on here and what's going on there, and you know, the compression. I'm using my eyes, and it's a lot different to using an engineer or something like that. And when I do my mix downs for people, and we do it on Zoom, they find it a little bit easier as well, because it can be more creative. And as an engineer, I can recommend things to them to help improve their track. So yeah, that was the journey. Any more questions? Okay, so we are going to be mixing down people's tracks. I've got a couple in. We're just waiting to get them all sorted. And yeah, we are going to be back tomorrow night with a mix down. And we're going to talk about more things there and then. Tonight was just a practice. Glad we realised that the volumes weren't big enough. Learn With Me said, how long would you say it took you to have confidence in your music? I spend a lot of time learning music production, and it feels everyone knows something I don't when making tracks. Well, it's all about repetition, and that's why I do the one-to-one. You can learn by trial and error, which is how most people learn. But when you do the one-to-one, I'm identifying where you're going wrong straight away, and we're just going, you're learning, and then that enhances where you go. There's multiple reasons why you might not be hitting the mark, you know, even though you've been doing it for a long time. And I'll guarantee most people it's the mindset. That's why I created a mindset for mixing course on the Subtone website, because I work with hundreds of people who had the same problem. And if you've learned from the internet, you've most likely not learned the fundamentals. And if you haven't got the fundamentals, you know, it's like building a house. You haven't got the foundations to keep the house up. And honestly, it's like, even now that people give me tracks and they sound good, but I just go back and there's so many things they quite haven't nailed, which is the fundamentals. And then a lot of the time, some people just don't have the room. You know, I've got an 18 grand pair of speakers. I've got £1,000 pair of earphones, but most importantly, I've got a properly acoustically treated room so that I can make informed decisions when I'm doing it. But I will say this to you, the key to a great track, okay, is the music. So if you've got great music and you've got great sounds, okay, the key to a great mix is the elements you put in. And every mix should be 95% there without any plugins on, okay? So when I do one-to-one, we go and we teach people fundamentals. I test them, they watch the course, and then we make sure they're applying it. And then as soon as they've learned everything, they have to go away and they come back and they've got to apply everything that we've learned. So gain staging, level matching, EQ, compression, saturation, clipping on everything. Okay, they don't have to use it on everything. And then what they do, we create a track from scratch. Okay, and on week 9 of the course, they have to come to me with 2 tracks. Okay, one track is the track with nothing on, and then the second version has got the plugins on which they think. So your track shouldn't need any plugins. Okay, maybe a little bit of reverb on your lead and your vocal, maybe on the clap, that's it. That's all I allow. And if your mix isn't right, then that's down to A, the levels, yeah, which will be your room, or, you know, you've just been listening too loud, which a lot of people do. You won't believe how tired it makes your ears and how it distorts the sound to you. But most people haven't got the room or the listening environment. So if you can't hear properly because of reflections, then you can't make informed decisions. But to answer your question, it took me 10 years. Okay, but I was going out and working with people and sitting behind, you know, and I wasn't practicing as much as I would, but I wasn't taught what's in the mindset for mixing course, the fundamental. I wasn't taught. Okay, I knew how to sample something in. I knew to record a vocal. I knew to record a bass, but my room wasn't right, and I didn't have these headphones like these, so I couldn't make informed decisions. So as soon as I got a really good room, which was in Sankey's in Manchester, right, and as soon as I bought some good speakers and got some acoustic treatment, luckily the room was fine. My mixes just started popping, okay, and then my mixes were doing really good. And then what happened was I moved to another room in Sankey's, big room. It was amazing. Mixes went downhill straight away. It was just the room. Couldn't get it right. I spent fortunes on it. But that's why people send me their mixes to mix down. That's why people send you stuff. That's why big artists use other people, because they just want to make the music and be creative. You can send it to someone, they mix it down, and it sounds to the standard that gets signed and gets, you know, released all the time. Plus you get a second pair of ears on your mix. So hi everyone, thanks for joining me. It's a bit of a test tonight. We're going to start mixing people's records down tomorrow. Any questions for me? Anything to do with the music industry, to do with mixing and production, to do with anything? There is a bit of a delay between when I speak and when your message comes up in the chat. We've just been talking about sidechaining and why something like LFO tool or shaper box is better, because it turns the volume down before the start of the kick, whereas a compressor turns it down as soon as the kick hits with the sidechain. So we'll talk about something quickly. So whilst we're talking about that, you know, if you are going to get your tracks mixed, and like I mix for loads of people and master for people, but with my own tracks, I still get somebody else to master them. I still sometimes get them to stem mix them for me. And the reason for that is when you're working on your own track and you've listened to it a million times, the familiarity makes you believe that it's all right, and you generally do. And then it's that second pair of ears where I'll get it, I'll convert it to groups, and I'll send it to someone. they'll put it through the analog gear. So my master engineer, and shout out MKF, he has he's got like an API summing mixer, he's got analog gear, and it does sound different, and he can clip it hard for me if I want to. So what I do is I send him stems. So let's talk about stem mixing while we're here and no one's asking any questions. So stem mixing is where you send stems to a mastering engineer, and they put them in and they mix them down. And the thing about having stems is you've got your kick separated from your bass, from your drums, and your music separated and your vocals separated, and then your effects on another channel. Well, that's how it used to be. It used to be about 6 stems. So I used to send kick, bass, high drums, which is hi-hat, shakers, tambourines, mid drums, which is claps, congas, snares, music, and vocals. Now, if the music's got some elements, one that's really a lead, like a piano, and then I've got some other underneath, and I've got more stems, then what I'll do is I'll send the piano as a separate stem. Now, my guy that I use does 15 stems. Because I use Cubase, all I'll do is, depending on what processing I've got on the bus, I'll export all my stems, put them into Cubase, and then I'll do it in there and send it to him, and he just a second pair of ears. Sometimes, I don't like what he does. Sometimes, most of the time, I love what he does, but the mix just sounds big and wide, and there is something different about analog. So that's the thing about stems, right? And that's why I don't use sends in Ableton. Okay, there is ways around it, but that's why I always use chains. So if I've got, say, I want a reverb, and obviously this is parallel because it's got a mix knob. Let's just say I want to send to something. So I want to send to a delay. What I'll do is I'll get something like an Echo Boy up. And I'll create a group, Command G. Obviously this is only in Ableton. In Cubase and Logic and everything else you can do this. You can actually do this in Bitwig. So that's the signal there, and then you go create chain. So this is your dry, Command R, dry, and then with the Echo Boy I can do whatever I want to do like it's a send. So for example, I can put on the EQ before it, and then if I wanted to put a bit of reverb, I could put a reverb on it. And then this is your send now. So you use this to send it. So. And that's how I do it. And the reason why I do that is because I will always want to have stems available. So yeah, quite a good session tonight. We learned about side chaining, and tomorrow night we're going to be mixing down somebody's track from 6 o'clock, probably go a bit later. Any questions, anybody? Please don't be worried about asking something that might seem silly, because we've all been there. And if you've just joined us for the first time, there's been plenty of people, we did loads of these in January, and I've just been too busy because half my clients are in the UK and half my clients are American. So my American clients want to work the evenings, but I've just had to finish the course, the one-to-one mentorship. So the space has come up during the week. So I'm going to do more of these. And I'm going to have more subjects. I'm going to be really well prepared. And we're going to do all kinds of stuff. So please follow me. Please like, share and subscribe. And if you can follow me at Jason Hurd Music on Instagram or Facebook or Subtone, message me. If there's something you want to know, I'll bring it up in these sessions and I'll prepare for it. I want to make these as informative and as helpful as possible. And yeah, any questions before we go? Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Axelon. Thank you, Learn With Me. I appreciate you interacting. Thank you, Adam Greenhouse. Just to comment, Adam said, would you buy LFO tool or shaper box or other? I'm a learner, so I don't want to break the bank and have buyer's remorse. You'll never regret buying shaper box, okay? And I've got to say to you, in fact, let's carry on a bit longer. So plugins, okay, that I use outside Ableton. Now I use Pro Q4 because I like the ease of it. It's open, it makes it easier, and it's got linear phase and everything else. So I use that. But you can use, I make most of my tracks on this. It's a sampler, and all the sampler has S2400 is a low cut, a high cut. It's all about choosing the right sounds. There's no brilliant saturation plugins in Ableton. They are quite good. They're not brilliant though. So I like Saturn. The FabFilter bundle's brilliant. The reverbs are fine in Ableton. The delays are fine in Ableton. You just got to learn how to use them. The compressors, okay. Again, FabFilter. If you're going to invest in anything, I would say the FabFilter bundle. Saturation's not great, so Saturn 2 is really, really, really good. I just think a couple of really nice reverbs would be a good investment. Like Valhalla are really good, so I use Vintage Verb quite a lot. What else do we use? Sidechain. So yeah, LFO tool or shaper box is a must. And then there's just, there's a couple of things like tape. So tape machines. So the UAD tape machines are really, really, really good. In fact, UAD plugins, it's $99 for the year for the UAD bundle, for the UADX, which is a native one. And the reverbs are unbelievable. They're amazing. I do a lot of vocals, so I use them all the time. But yeah, what kind of music are you making, Adam? But if you're making tech house and minimal tech, you don't need all those kind of things. But it's just the control that I really like with things like the FabFilter bundle. So yeah, that's generally what I use. Clipper, there's no clippers really in Ableton. So I like standard clip. If you're trying to learn, K-Clip 3 might be really good. Compressor, yeah. OTT, they get that in Ableton. You don't need to worry about all the, the analog emulations if you're making like underground house and stuff like that. So yes, I'll see you tomorrow for the mix down. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please leave a comment. Please like, share, and subscribe. Oh, Discus Filtered House. Yeah. Obviously, you need a good filter. I love this. It's an investment, but they do have deals, and I'd wait for it. But for me, have I got it on here? No. Mutator. It's by Softube. It's a bit of a nightmare because it works left and right, so you've got to parallel them together, but it's just got this sound that reminds me of the old school filters. That sound there, oh, it's amazing. I've tried to recreate it. I tried to recreate all my plugins using Ableton plugins. Just that sound there, I couldn't get it. Even with a bit of resonance boost on the EQ, I just couldn't get it. And yeah, it just sounds like an old disco house record, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in plugins wise. So I would say if if filtered disco is your thing, this is unbelievable. I'm going to start doing some videos on plugins and soon, so this will be one of them because I use it all the time. Have a great night. We're going to be here every night as we move forward. Please DM me, please leave a message. Thank you for watching.